Shawty, you know the vibes. When I hop in the ride, you better be ready when I pull outside. Baby, you know the vibes, baby. Baby, you know the vibes. Coming live from the 6-1, you hold the 5. I be in and out.
What's going on, travel fam? It's your main man, Just GQ, and you are tuned in to another episode of The Travel Guides, the podcast dedicated to making travel easy for everyday people like you and me. And this is a special episode of sorts. I say that because the date is November 6th, 2024, and the time is 5:50 a.m. And in the background, I have the United States of America presidential election coverage. It's not even really the coverage, it's more or less the YouTube scoreboard, but regardless, that's on in the background. And the race has been called. Donald Trump has presumably won and will make a return to the Oval Office as the 47th president of these United States. And I think this is interesting. I felt compelled just to hop on the pod and to provide my voiceover, just because this has been a weird presidential election season, I'll say, where you have two geriatric men, two 80-something-year-old men who are running for president initially. Joe drops out. Kamala comes in. Kamala actually ran a much better campaign than I had originally expected given the circumstances, but is ultimately defeated by Trump in the election. The current standings are 276 to 223, which is somewhat similar to his 2016 presidential campaign against Hillary, although I will say this time around Trump has won the popular vote by about 5 million votes at this point. So seemingly that is a very telling indicator in terms of how the mindset of America has in fact shifted since 2016, or at least for this most recent presidential election. That being said, I'm sure that there are a myriad of reactions that are happening. I think regardless of who's on the ticket or who's victorious, there's always the narrative or the talk track of, I'm leaving the country, I'm moving to elsewhere, and people don't usually. Although I will say more recently, especially as the expat community grows and as people become more familiar with the land beyond the border, there have been people who have elected for, call it an elective expat situation, where they move to another country, start a new life. And I think that's something that's always been in my consideration set. Like, if this stuff goes crazy, like, I could always just put America in my rear view, low-key, at least for a few years, and then live abroad until it cools down. But I think the reaction, I'm here to encourage the people who need encouraging, and honestly to just speak a word of perseverance to people that you, regardless, perseverance and decency, I think. Perseverance in terms of not being, not feeling defeated necessarily, if Kamala was your presidential choice, and wanting to continue to fight the good fight, because I think one thing that's been lost in this country has been decency to other people, respecting your fellow man or woman, respecting women in general, if we're being honest. I will not take that off ramp, because that could land us here for about an hour and a half to 3 hours just on that ramp. But neither here nor there. I just think that we've lost an element of decency, and I don't know that it's on its way back anytime soon, to be quite honest. The coming days and weeks and months, I am cautiously awaiting just to see what the reaction of people will be, what the coverage will be, what type of information and misinformation will be propagated throughout the channels at large. We know that Elon is a close ally of Trump, and obviously X and Twitter is a major channel where misinformation is disseminated. But I also think you can. I also would advise you to get your stock portfolio together, because and that's not even candidate specific, but just like generally post elections, we see the stock market react, and it's an opportunity to make a little bread. So diversify y'all bonds. Word to Wu-Tang. But I think where I want to focus this episode, boomeranging back to travel, is a lesson that I learned in 2016 that has become relevant again today. So in 2016, when Trump was first elected, one, I, like many people, wasn't really taking it seriously. I did my civic duty, went to go vote, and then went back to my crib in downtown Chicago. My high rise, it was pretty player spot, low key, but it's neither here nor there. And I went back there to watch the results come in, and it was a little tighter than I had originally anticipated. I went to sleep, and I woke up, and the best way to describe my reaction when I woke up is that Pedro Pascal meme where he's, or video or whatever, where he's like laughing hysterically, and then he turns around and he's crying. Just because I was just like, what does this even mean? Like this, like y'all really, no shade to my fellow reality stars, but like y'all elected a reality star and a career celebrity to the Oval Office, and so I think like I was trying to like process what that even meant, because we, and logic would tell you to that like people who have established a level of experience and expertise in politics should drive the political landscape. Now, I'm all for people, shaking shit up every now and again if that's how you feel, but I think the violent rhetoric that was obviously attached to the Trump campaign in 2016, 2020, and 2024, it just rubs you the wrong way, because it obviously exposes a lot of biases and a lot of prejudices that people have, that they now feel empowered and emboldened to to literally shout from the stage, talking about the most recent comments about Puerto Rico being an island full of trash and whatever else, and he went down the lane with Puerto Ricans and Jews and blacks and everybody, women, everybody except white men. So I think like that's it's interesting to see that play out. So in 2016, as I'm kind of reeling in my emotions and trying to like process what this means from both an emotional and a practical perspective, I had a trip coming up. I had one of my frat brothers that was getting married, and so I was getting ready to go down to his wedding, and then to slide to take my first trip to Africa, which many Trump supporters had encouraged me to go back to. Yeah, you gotta laugh to keep from crying. But I was preparing to go to Africa for the first time, and I was going to South Africa, and I was so excited. I didn't know what to expect, but I was very excited to go. And if you're a longtime listener of the Travel Guides, you've heard me talk about how much I revered my trip to South Africa and how transformative it was from just a personal perspective. It was definitely a pilgrimage of sorts. I think as an African American, as a black man in America, you hear stories of Africa, you hear perceptions of Africans and how they perceive us. And so, my motto, like I like to see, it's not really a motto, but like my mindset is more or less I want to go see for myself and form my own opinion. And from there, then from an informed point of view, then I will take other pieces of context into consideration. So when I go to South Africa, there was one thing that was really clear to me, and it's that the whole world keeps its eyes on America. And I say that not jokingly or facetiously at all. Like the entire world currently is looking at what is America going to do. And I think there are some people who are, fit the arrogant American stereotype that probably were like, yeah, duh, like, of course they looking at us like we run this shit type action. But like in reality, the whole world is looking at what America is going to do, because we are a world power, and what the decisions that we make, as dysfunctional as they can be and as dysfunctional as we act at times, they have a ripple effect and a true impact on the world across several disciplines. And so at this point, 8 years ago, which is wild to even think about, but 8 years ago, this was news to me. Like I was just shocked by it. And so I was just asked incessantly, what's going on with Trump? Why'd y'all elect Trump? Like, what's he all about? And some of them are saying it from like a not necessarily ridiculing, but like kind of chastising us a little bit and being like what the hell y'all doing? And then some people were like truly trying to understand, which is similar to how America is in general. And so I think just being able to see that and to discuss that with them, while like I don't even know. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm trying to figure out how I feel emotionally, logically, practically. Like, I pride myself on being a pragmatic thinker, but I mean, this was kind of like just a wild situation that you are not really thinking about. And then that was kind of when after I had, like, no lie, probably like half a dozen of those conversations in Joburg, it like clicked for me, where I was like, oh, like people really, like they've been waiting to talk to an American. Like, and granted, it was just like a couple weeks later. It was just, that was like the top topic of conversation was like, y'all really elected Trump. And so I think that I just want to, it ended up, we continued on the trip because we split our time between Joburg and South Africa, and South Africa is a much more diverse place because Joburg is black as hell. It's like it's very, very rich in history. You feel like you are getting an authentic African experience, I would say, compared to Cape Town, which feels very much like we said it felt like Miami, Orleans, but it was like very diverse. There were a lot of different types of people that were just around and kind of hanging out. It felt like just like a big city, but the same dynamic persisted there as well, where they were asking for our perspective and trying to understand, once we had identified ourselves as Americans, like, what did y'all do? Like, what's the logic there? Like, are we missing something? How should we be thinking about this? And it's because like the world is looking at what America is going to do. And so this was, in the grand scheme of things, a footnote in my South Africa experience and my first trip to Africa experience. However, it was pretty poignant because that was the breakthrough, and it is now much more relevant again, just given the realities of the situation that Trump will be the president for the next 4 years, and largely is set up to drive policy that will be pretty sweeping. He has strategically knocked out a lot of the checks and balances that exist. The Senate and the House are leaning, if not secured, for the Republican Party as well. And the Supreme Court obviously is in his favor as well. And there are some pretty dire proposed policies that are, that could be coming through. And so I think, and the sentiment is that this is what America wanted, which I think is the most piercing reality of them all, is that the people wanted this. And it's an uncomfortable reality, but it is a reality. And I think that for me personally, like, this is not an unfamiliar reality, because in 2020, I know as many people did from both the Republican and the Democratic parties, or not even that, because I think we've evolved past parties at this point. It's very much like left and right. But as people experienced from both the left and the right side of the political spectrum, I lost some friends in 2020 who exposed themselves. I lost some acquaintances who exposed themselves as people who essentially their values didn't align with mine, and they were able to share that they didn't really care essentially about my humanity, or the humanity of others in a very flagrant way, which was enough for me to just reevaluate the entirety of our relationship. So I would just encourage y'all to be cautious, but also to be prepared as you travel abroad, that this will be a topic of conversation, and to not be caught off guard by the fact that people are going to want to understand your perspective as an American, because that is the difference. That is the core difference that I've learned across my travels, is that international people outside of America are much more attuned to world politics from a non-disinformation perspective, and really generally speaking. But people outside of America are much more tapped into world politics and are much more astute with world politics than Americans are with our own politics, to be very honest. And so just know that you will be asked your point of view. Hopefully you have one, and you're not just regurgitating or spewing misinformation or false narratives that have been fed to you. But I would just be prepared. I certainly will be prepared. I will be continuing to travel abroad. I have a few trips for the balance of the year that are planned, and I will not be caught off guard this time. Although I welcome open discussion and dialogue, because I candidly always see these conversations as opportunities to learn, one, the world political structure, because that's something that, like, obviously the framework that we understand is a very flawed two-party system, but that's not how the world works necessarily. And so being able to be exposed to other frameworks and ways of thinking, and being able to understand how political structures influence larger regions and how American decisions impact various regions across the world, those conversations can glean some insights, and I always welcome those. And with those insights, you can become smarter about how the world works, and with more knowledge and more education and more understanding from a firsthand perspective, then you do not have to fall victim to false narratives and misinformation that people feed you for their gain and from just overall a motivated place. But that's it. In the words of your friend who you just hopped off the phone with after 2 hours, I just wanted to hop on here and holler at y'all and share my stream of consciousness, which this very much was, as I am processing the American election, what this means for all people. I would encourage y'all to stay safe, first and foremost, because safety is definitely paramount and will be a topic throughout the coming days, weeks, months, years. And to stay informed and to stay respectful above all else, unless you need to defend yourself, and then do what you need to do. But I might edit that out, but it's real. It's very real. And so I will certainly keep y'all in the loop and let y'all know what things are looking like on my side, and I wish you the best on yours. So that'll do it for another episode of the Travel Guides. And remember, your next adventure is just a click away. Thanks for listening.